Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm Paige. I'm an alcoholic and an addict because it's all inclusive. So I'm all the things, y'all. Thank you so much for having me. What a privilege it is to be here with you guys today. And I was thinking about what do I feel called to speak about today? And the name of this meeting is Keep It Simple. So I felt called to share my experience, strength, and hope with me overcomplicating the heck out of all of it and how simple this 12-step way of life truly is. And I'll probably doing some bouncing around the big book. I do that. We'll probably be doing that. So if you got your book to hand, grab it. If not, don't worry. But first and foremost, by the time I came to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, but by the time I came to the rooms of 12-step, man, I did not know what it meant to be an alcoholic or to be an addict. I did not know what it meant to have the illness that is described in this book, Alcoholics Anonymous. And, I came here with a whole lot of andas, you know what I mean? And I'm an alcoholic anda. Yeah, I'm an addict, anda this, anda that, anda that. And I showed up with a whole lot of yeah buts. Yeah, but I'm different. Yeah, but I'm not as bad as you. Yeah, but he was worse than me. Yeah, but I've got some outside issues. Yeah, but I'm young. Yeah, but, and I would find all the ways I was different. And you see, I would overcomplicate the illness that is described in the book Alcoholics Anonymous. You see, I thought the illness had everything to do with consequences. And I would show up here and I would compare the consequences. Now, I would conveniently ignore the consequences that I experienced that were pretty severe, and I would minimize the crap out of those. I'm sure none of you guys relate to that. But I would hear people sharing and they'd be talking about having divorces. And I'm like, I've never had a divorce, never been divorced, never been married. Just so you know, like a marriage is a prerequisite to a divorce. And if you're wondering, Paige, why weren't you married? It's because I am not functional enough for the paperwork. So I was only common law. You know what I mean? So some of you guys are functional enough for the paperwork, right? And I thought, having this illness that is outlined in this book, I thought that meant having DUIs. And listen, I didn't have a single DUI. Now, I never had a driver's license, but the real ones know that a driver's license is not a prerequisite to a DUI. Some of you guys know what it's like to get a DUI before you got your learners, and I would look at things like, I've never been to jail. Well, I never got caught. And actually, that never got caught, let me tell you, that's not even true. I was such a dumpster that was on fire. They didn't take me to jail. They took me to the hospital. They're like, ooh, let's put her there. You know what I mean? So I'm comparing all these things. And by the time I approached the rooms of 12-step, man, I had been in I've been in that common law relationship. Now, I'll let you guys know that I referred to it as a relationship, but the reality was it was a codependent, mutually assured destruction, hostage situation that was fueled by alcohol and drugs in a dumpster that was on fire that was ravining off a cliff. You guys know that? My loving relationship, my little sweetie. He was not a sweetie. But some of us are like, yeah, I've been in one of those. Some of you are like, I've been one of those. And if you've been in one of those, I'm in, I'm out, I'm in, I'm out. And you see, I would look at him. Now, I'm going to share with you some obvious daddy issues. We can point to that for surezies. But he was 16 years older than me. And by the way, we had met under a bridge while I was on the pass from a psych ward. It's true love. It's a story for the grandkids. You know what I mean? Like, oh, she's romantic. Passed out under an overpass while I was on pass from a psych ward, 16 years older than me. Now, I'm not, that's the point of the age difference is to say he had been drinking and using drugs the entire 16-year age gap. And in that 16-year age gap, he was using alcohol, he was using cocaine, and I'm like, man, that is an alcoholic. That is a drug addict. And I was convinced to have this illness that is outlined in this book that I wasn't reading when I got here, let's be real. I thought to have the illness meant that I had to have seizures in the morning. You see, we had to go to the liquor store. It opened at 10, 11 on Sundays. The real ones know when it opens. You know what I mean? We know when it opens. We know when it closes. And I would show up with him at 10 in the morning because he needed to get that alcohol or he would have a seizure. And he would often have seizures in the morning. And I'm like, I'm not an alcoholic. I don't have seizures. I don't have a drug problem. I don't have seizures. So we can see where I am overcomplicating the heck out of it. And so I would come with these preconceived notions, these old ideas of what it meant to be an alcoholic or what it meant to be an addict, whichever fellowship that I was in. And I was looking for all the ways that I wasn't like you. You know, I would do this thing. Now, you wonderful people would never do it. But it's this thing. It's called judging the speaker. Yeah. I lost some of you when I mentioned the age gap. Some of you I lost, you know what I mean? But I would judge the speaker and I would think, man, I'm way worse than you. Then the next person would share and I'd think I'm not as bad as you. And I would look for all the ways I was different, all the ways I didn't fit in, but I desperately wanted to be a part of. And so to keep it simple, title it. See, that's what this talk is going to be. I am so sorry, y'all. Who invited Paige? Who invited her? MJ. This is MJ. We can take it up with MJ. What we'll do is we can write some 4-column inventory in that. Column 1, MJ. Column 2, invited Paige. You know what I mean? Oh, alrighty. I've gotten so much better at accepting personal responsibility, as we can see. But here's the thing, to keep it simple. There are 2 statements on page 44 that I can turn to questions. And those 2 statements on page 44 define the illness that is outlined in this book, Alcoholics Anonymous. And it was as simple as it needed to be for somebody like me. You see, it pegged me between the eyes. Those 2 statements turned into questions. And I could not deny who I was or what I was. And I could see the truth. And so, you know what? If you got your book with you, let's pop over to page 44. If you don't have your book, don't worry about it. I'm going to read it. Yeah, will we be doing some bouncing around? Maybe, I don't know. I don't know what this talk's going to be. Think I planned it? Off we go. Woohoo! All right, page 44, first full paragraph. In the preceding chapters, you've learned something of alcoholism. Well, I hope so. It's chapter 4, and we had the doctor's opinion before that. You know what I mean? I hope we learned something. And it says, we hope we have made clear the distinction between the alcoholic and the non-alcoholic. And this is what differentiates an alcoholic and a non-alcoholic, or an addict and a non-addict. This is what it means to have the illness that is outlined in this book. It says, if when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely. And then it says, or. And I'll be real with y'all, I'm an and sort of gal. I'm not oring it up. I'm anding it all over the place. I'm an and sort of gal. Or if when drinking, you have little control over the amount you take. And I can take those statements, turn them into questions, and I can ask myself, is this my experience? I always like to start with the second question. The second statement turned into a question. When I drink or use mind-altering substances or engage in whatever brings you to this all-inclusive meeting, when I engage in this, what happens to me? Well, and I'll tell you what happens to me. I cannot control the amount that I take. You see, I take a drink and I experience, and then I need more. And the more that I drink or the more that I use, the louder that more gets. You know what I mean? I start and I cannot stop. I cannot control the amount that I take. And actually, to keep it simple, I'll throw it out there for you guys. So for the alcoholics, if I'm trying to figure out if I have control, do I have this allergy? That's what we're talking about. And I'm not sure. Well, we can ask ourselves this question. Have we ever played this game? And it is a game that I played many a time. You can let me know if you ever played this game. It's called Bottom Beer Roulette. And if you're like, oh girl, I don't know if I know that game. So what it is, it's where it's at the end of the party, end of the night, when people have passed out, gone to bed, gone home, or coupled up, and they're making their different bad decisions. You know what I mean? And what am I doing? I'm going around and I'm drinking everyone's bottom beers. I'm finishing their drinks. And what am I trying to avoid? The one with the cigarette butts in it. Yeah, you guys know. If you know what it's like to get a mouthful of butts, oh, you found the butt can, right? Right? And here's the thing. If you know what it's like to play bottom beer roulette, there is no doubt in our minds that you've got the allergy. Non-alcoholics are not playing that game. But I'll let you know something. If you finish the one with the butts in it, you finish that? Oh, girl, you got the allergy. There is no doubt you got this thing. I haven't finished the one with the butts, but sorry, I got a visual in my brain. I got a taste in my mouth. I'm like, oh, unpleasant. So is my experience that once I start, I cannot control the amount that I take every single time. And going back to the first statement that we can pose as a question, it says, when I honestly want to, can I quit entirely? And you see what happens for me is I start to drink or I start to use and I can't control the amount that I take. And I cross these lines in the sand I said I would never cross. I hurt people in ways that I never wanted to hurt people. I break trust I never wanted to break. I break relationships I never wanted to break. I break hearts and dreams and goals and dignity. Do you know what I mean? I lose everything that was important to me. And I scrape myself up off the bathroom floor. That's a lie. It was often behind a dumpster because I'm classy. But I scraped myself up off wherever it was. And I said with everything in me, I do not want to do it again. And it is asking me, did that have any effect? And I will tell you from my experience, I would say that is it. I am never, ever, ever going to do it again. I'm never going to do it again. And I never wanted to do it again. But a day, a week, a month, several months down the line, I would get a thought. And that thought would happen in my mind. And that thought would happen when I am as sober as I am today. But my illness that I did not know I have was untreated. And it would be a thought that something like, this time will be different. Nobody will ever know. I'll just go out for 3 drinks. You know, my problem is drinking with those Canadians. But we got a lot of the people in the UK over here. I can hang out with y'all. You know, it'll be different this time. It looks like, my problem is I cannot drink like a lady. But I'm sure I can smoke crack like a lady. Some of you guys know, right? Some of you guys know, right? It looks like, man, if you're feeling the way that I was feeling, you'd have to get high too. You'd have to get drunk too. I'm going to kill myself anyway, so why don't I get loaded? It looks like a thought that is on me all day. Take a drink. Take a drink, 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 until what little willpower I was able to muster is eroded away. And I got a drink in my hand, a pipe in my mouth, I'm popping pills. Man, you know what I mean? And I don't know how it happened. And then it also looks like I got a case of the suddenlies where I'm out there, I'm living my life, everything's good, I want to stay sober, I don't want to do it, I'm good, I got a drink in my hand and I don't know how it happened. Suddenly. And is that my experience? Is it my experience that it's, like I'm going to kill myself anyways, why don't I get drunk, why don't I get high? Do I know what it is like to say, I do not want to do it again, only to find myself doing it again and again and again? And those 2 symptoms, lack of control once I start and lack of choice when I want to stay sober, that is the illness that is outlined in this book. And it is that simple. It has nothing to do with the consequences, nothing to do with where I ended up, nothing to do with what I gained and what I lost, and everything to do with, can I control it every single time? And when I want to stay sober, can I? That is the illness that is outlined in this book. And so, if I have the illness that is outlined in this book, it is only 2 symptoms that I need to have in order to diagnose this illness. I got to have a step 1 experience. I have to experience that first step. And how I do that is I have to realize those 2 symptoms in my life. You see, the allergy of the body means that there will never, ever be a time when I can ever safely drink or for me use any mind-altering substance ever again. There will never be a time when I can do that. But that's not step one. You see, step one is that I can never, ever, ever safely use any mind-altering substance ever again. But I will. I will. That is step one. You see, the allergy of the body means that I cannot do it. The obsession of the mind means that I will do it again. If I have those two symptoms, it is not a matter of if I relapse, but when. And that is step one. Not a lot of hope in that step. Just going to throw that out there. Not a lot of hope. All step one is that I am going to relapse. And we can hold ourselves. Have I tried? I did not try everything, but everything that I tried to get sober, to stay sober, everything that I tried failed. Anything and everything that I tried to put between me and the first drink, the first drug, the first compulsive behavior, none of it worked. I could not experience that permanent, contented sobriety. And so that is step one. I'm going to relapse. And that's as simple as it is. Can I see that I'm going to relapse? Keep it simple. All right, so let's talk about step two. And step two is very simply about believing there is a solution. Now, the solution that we have in 12 steps is a spiritual experience, a spiritual awakening. That is our solution. Now, at step two, all I need to believe is that it exists. I don't need to like it. I don't need to have it at this moment. I don't need to understand it. I don't need to comprehend it. I don't need to feel it out. All I need to believe is that it exists. Now, as you guys were reading how it works and we're going through the start of the meeting, we were joking that Maureen was having something to eat. Now, I was joking, share some with the class. And then Eileen mentioned that Jacqueline had chocolate, so we got to pop over to her place for dessert. And so we were joking about that. But really, what is the second step? The second step, really, bear with me, I'm using this as a metaphor, is about believing that Maureen and Jacqueline have snacks. We don't got the snacks. We don't have the snacks. But I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I haven't eaten today. I am hungry. I need something. And I don't have those snacks. I don't know. I don't even know what they are. I know Jacqueline's got some yummy chocolates, but I don't know what Maureen was eating. No worries. So I don't need to know it. I don't need to define it. I don't need to understand it. I just need to believe that they have it and that I need to get it. That's step two. Now I'm gonna share with you some of the barriers that I thought I had in the second step. You see, I thought I had to walk hand in hand on the beach with God. I live in Alberta. You guys don't have to know where that is, but we're not near any sort of beaches. It is a landlocked province. I'm nowhere near a beach. The closest beach would be like 12 hours to get to the Pacific Ocean by drive. You know what I mean? I'm nowhere near a beach. And I don't walk without assistance. You know what I mean? I'm not walking hand in hand on the beach with God. I thought I had to know God. I thought I had to understand God. I thought I had to comprehend God. I thought I had to have the spiritual experience on step two. Does that sound familiar? I thought I had to figure it out. And the second step is not about figuring it out. The second step is just believing that you have had an experience, that there is a light on in your eyes, that there is a hope in your spirit, that you took a course of action to bring about a spiritual awakening, and maybe, just maybe, that could be possible for me too. And I came with a whole lot of old ideas about God, preconceived notions. And here's the thing, I don't even need to overcome those in the second step. That's the fourth step will deal with all of that. You see, the second step is it's written on page 59 or on the Zoom screen or on the scroll on the wall. Talks about came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. The first thing that is asked of me is, can I believe that there is a power greater than myself? That's it. Could there be a power greater than myself? And I come to rooms like this with people like you, amazing, wonderful people. I can see the light. I can see the hope. And I cannot deny that there's a change that has happened to you. And I don't need to figure out that power, which is God. And I'm going to throw something out there. Is there anyone here? Is there anyone here who has had that experience where you're at a party and somebody gives you a pill or gives you a white substance and you take it without asking a whole bunch of questions? Yeah, you guys know. It's like, oh no, but I need to understand it. No, y'all don't. No, y'all don't. I had no problem taking mysterious substances from delightful strangers. No problem doing that back in the day. I don't gotta figure this power out. I just need to exist. In fact, taking a pill you don't know what it does, that is a beautiful example of more than the faith that is required. In fact, when we talk about, like, Paige, you don't understand, I can't have faith. Well, I got another one. Is there anyone here who has ever taken a floor pill? Now, a floor pill, for those that don't know, that is very specifically, you didn't even get it from a stranger. It is a pill that you found on the floor. Yeah, some of you all know. And here's the thing. If you took a floor pill, I promise you, you already have the faith that is required to work this program. Anyone here ever take a car floor pill? That is a pill you found on the floor of a car? Yeah, or on a bus on like transit? Oh, you guys, you can do that inventory no problem. You can make amends to your ex. You can do it. I promise you, you got faith, right? And the truth of the matter is, there was not a time in my life that I did not absolutely worship at the altar that was drugs and alcohol. You know what I mean? There was not a problem in my life that I was not absolutely convinced that drugs and alcohol could not solve. Do you know what I'm saying? I worshiped at that altar. I had absolute faith in that power. And also, y'all know that spiritual prayer position we find ourselves at about 2 or 3 in the morning, where we are praying to the porcelain gods. It sounds a little something like, "Dear God, make it stop. Blah. I promise I'll never drink again." Blah. You guys know that one, right? And I was even praying on my knees when I was doing those prayers. You know what I'm saying? I have the capacity for faith. I don't need to know it. I don't need to understand it. I don't need to define it. I just need to believe that it exists. And again, I cannot look at your lives and deny that there's not been a change in you. And all I need to believe is that maybe if I do what you do, I can get the results that you've gotten. Maybe, just maybe, I'm not so special that the miracle that has happened in your life could not happen in mine. And the second part of step 2, it says, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves, that's part 1, and part 2 is could restore us to sanity. All I need to believe is that this power can remove from me that obsession of the mind, the thought that I have when I am sober that takes me back again and again and again to the first drink, drug, or compulsive behavior, whatever brings you to this all-inclusive meeting. Is it possible that obsession of the mind could be removed? And really, all I'm believing is that a spiritual experience exists. That's step 2. Now, the third step, man, again, the third step, that's where we see the word understand. And I'm like, God, as I understand God, I don't understand God. I don't comprehend God. I don't know this thing. But you see, in the 1930s, the word understand, I have a 1930s dictionary because I'm a whole lot of fun. Hang out with me. We'll have pizza and read the dictionary. Woo! Why? But in my 1930s dictionary, the word understand means to know through experience. And at the third step, I'm not going to have an experiential knowing of this power. I'm going to get it through taking the tangible actions of the 12 steps. So the third step is very simply a decision. I won't say just a decision because it's a big one. You know, when we come to the rooms at 12 step and we get given a whole bunch of suggestions, and some of them are great and some of them are not so great. Like some of them, get a sponsor, do the steps, get a home group, get in service, don't drink, Can't do that. Play the tape to the end. Can't do that. Go to meetings. That's not bad. 90 meetings in 90 days. Not a bad suggestion. Won't keep me sober. Avoid your ex. Not a bad suggestion, but, I need the power of the universe to keep me from texting that jerk. I'm just kidding. Neither one of us was functional enough to have cell phones, so we just have to meet up after he was released from jail. Let me tell you, he was not Mr. Right. He was maybe Mr. Right now, or just Mr. Right out of incarceration, right out of detox, I don't know how to pick him. And so does he, because look, he got me. You know what I mean? I'm no prize either. Not throwing him under the bus. All right. But when we talk about the third step, there are all these things and directions and advice. And I'll be honest with you, I want to take the path of least resistance. I'll come to the meetings. I'll make some coffee. I'll do a little bit of service. I'll do that, but you know what I don't want to do? The 12 steps is a way of life to produce a spiritual experience. But that is what I need to do. If I have the illness that is outlined in this book, and I have a step 1 experience, what I see is nothing but a spiritual experience will keep me sober. I need to do that. So the third step is very simply a decision. Very simply a decision to work these 12 steps as a way of life, like my life depends on it, because it does. That is the third step. My will and my life does not get turned over in the third step. My will and my life gets turned over as I work steps 4 through 9. 4 through 9, those steps are the vehicle. They are the engine. They are the motor of 12 step. That is what takes me from the place of hopelessness, step 1, where I will relapse, to the place of hope in step 12, where I have a spiritual awakening. That is what gets me there. And that's what I need to do. So again, to keep it simple, if I am new, if I'm coming back, if I am struggling, if I'm here and I'm sober and I'm just holding on, happy to be here, happy to be, don't have a cigarette next to me, I'm going to go up like kindling, I'm dry, or if I'm here today and I'll put on the smile and I'll sound good, but at 3 a.m, I'm laying awake at night and I don't want to be here anymore. What do I have to do? What I have to do, and I'm not going to tell you what you have to do, but as somebody who has been there, as somebody who has experienced the breadth of this illness, what do I have to do? What I had to do was I had to work these 12 steps out of this book, Alcoholics Anonymous, as a way of life, like my life depends on it, because it does. Because it does. And that is what I need to do. And all the other stuff will help and support. But if I focus on that, I can get well and I can stay well. And that's what the third step is. It is simply a decision. And I have this metaphor where it's like, man, I am standing on the edge of a cliff and I don't know what's going to happen on the other side, but I see the inevitability of the first drink, the first drug, the first compulsive action barreling down on me. And I know that I'm going to do it again. And I know that I cannot do it again. And I look over the edge of that cliff and there's a cloud of unknowing. You see, I can't see beyond that cloud, but what I hear is your voices that say, jump, jump. We found a solution, that spiritual awakening. We found it. Jump. We will help you take that leap of faith. And I look and I can't see, but I have to trust. I have to trust that you're not lying about your experience. And with the inevitability of the relapse barreling down and looking over the edge and hearing your voices of hope, there is nothing left for me but to take that leap of faith, to jump and to dive in to these 12 steps as the course of action for my life. And so what do I need? If what I need is a spiritual awakening, what I understand is that root, what is wrong with me is I am blocked from God. Higher power, creator, spirit of the universe. There is a blockage between me and this power, and I've got to clear it away. In the second step, it talks about the bedevilments. In the doctor's opinion, it talks about restless, irritable discontent. In the bedevilments, I can't make a living. I'm feeling of uselessness. I'm full of fear. I can't seem to be of real help to other people. And that is how I feel when I am sober. It doesn't define my illness, but that is what we need to treat. And in the third step, we look at the selfishness and self-centeredness and the various manifestations of self that are blocking me from this power. The power is there, and it was always there, but I am blocked from it by my pain, and that pain drives that selfishness, that drives that self-centeredness, which fuels that pain. And so what do I need to do? I need to clear away the stuff in me that is blocking me from that power. And how I do that is I begin to put pen to paper on step 4. And I have a look at my resentments. And my resentments, those are the refeeling of that negative emotion, and I have a look at them. And at first it's great, because at first it's like, haha, that jerk. And that's the thing, when people are like, I have such a hard time getting started. I'm like, nah, it's easy. That jerk. And that's what that jerk did to me. And third column, their jerky behavior and how it affected me. But where do I get to? Where I get to in that fourth column of resentments is I get to see where my mistakes have been. I get to see where I made decisions based on self that put me in a position to have that resentment. I get to see how, man, I've done the exact same things that they did, and probably to them first. I'm holding them to a standard I didn't live up to. I see how my selfishness, my self-centeredness, being driven by those things put me in a position to have that resentment in the first place. I see where, not was I, but where was I selfish? Where was I dishonest? Where was I self-seeking? And where was I afraid? And what happens? And I got to pray before I get there. I got to use that sick man prayer, the 67 prayer, and I got to see them in a whole new way. And as I do that, it transforms. It radically transforms. That same person, I could not stand it. You guys know what? If you've written inventory, you know that feeling where I'm going deep and I'm going hard at that fourth column, and it goes, I owe them an amends. Oh no. You know what I mean? You know what that's like. It's like, you pulled my covers. And I begin to see the things that are blocking me from this power. And then what do? I take those fears that I see in that fourth column and I add them to my fear inventory. And of course I add other ones. And you know what happens is I do that. I have a look at why I have that fear. I have a look at how me playing God, me running the show has created the fears, made the fears worse, brought the fears into fruition. And then I have a look at how can God reliance overcome this fear. And there's a framework for where I can move forward. And at once I begin to outgrow this fear. And of course I pray before I get to that fourth column. If I do inventory different, you're right, I'm wrong, that's cool. But then I have a look at my sex harms, my sex conduct, my relationships. And I begin to see where, again, I'm looking where I was the jerk and where I was, selfish, dishonest, inconsiderate. I look at where I aroused jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness. I look where I was at fault. And then I flip it. And I write on what should I have done instead. And again, that where I was the jerk, again, that gives me more amends to make, and it allows me to see my defects of character. But that fourth column tells me, it gives me an ideal for my sane and sound future sex life. It gives me an ideal and I can't live up to an ideal. Ideals, there's no power in an ideal. And this is my experience, I need to take that ideal to prayer. And I pray that, and I meditate that, and it becomes a working part of my life, and little by slowly I live up to it. And I have this inventory where I can see where I've caused harm. Maybe I can't perfectly see it, but I can see, and the things that were gripping me, the guilt, the shame, the anger, the fear, man, it had a stranglehold on me. On page 62, it talks about selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. I got to get free of it. And it says, driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. You see, I am driven by those things. And now they fall. They fall. And so what happens, I have this inventory, I've got to take it to God and to another human being. And when we talk about the word admit, there's two ways to look at that word. One is a bit of a confession. And some of y'all know the joke I'm making. It's an old joke. It's an old Paige one. But it's that joke I got to admit, a bit of a confession. I stole your car, I slept with your husband, and I peed on your carpet. And if you're wondering, I would never do those things. It was linoleum. And here's the thing. If you're like, what's the difference between selfish and self-centered? Selfish is when I do those things. And self-centered is when I'm like, do you not like me because I did them? You know what I mean? That's the difference. And see, what happens is that's one way to look at the word admit. And another is to let in. You see, when I sit down with another human being and that power which I call God, and I am letting in that light, that power, that grace to the dark parts of who I am, when I share fearlessly the inventory that I wrote and any deep, dark secrets that I have, and that lets in God's light. And I begin, in the step 5 promises, it says we begin to have a spiritual awakening. This happens. And when we go from there, that 5th step, having that lens of who I am, what I did, and most importantly, the things inside of me that are blocking me, I take an hour where I sit in quiet and I review the work that I've done, and I have a see, man, am I willing to be free of this? Am I willing to be free from each and every one of these things? And then if I am willing, I ask for this power to take them from me, because I can't be free of them on my own willpower, on my own effort. I need God to take it from me. My job is to take the actions of the 12 steps. That is my responsibility, to be willing to continue to grow. And God's business is defect removal, taking that stuff from me. And if I'm willing, I do that 7th step prayer. And because I'm willing to be a different person, I'm willing to be changed, I'm willing to grow in a different way, even if I do not know who I will be without it, where I go from there is to set right my wrongs. And when I do that, man, there's a freedom beyond anything that I could have imagined. Man, I go from being able to, hiding behind mailboxes, wish there was more mailboxes to hide behind, in 2025, right? I go from there to being able to see how my experience can benefit others. The worst things I've ever done, the ghosts that were nagging at me of guilt and shame and that feeling that I'm the worst human being that ever lived, man, I go and I begin to make amends, and I am diligent in that process, and it falls away. And there is freedom. And again, that 4 through 9 is the vehicle. And that vehicle, it is clearing away the stuff between me and this power. And I do that, and I do that diligently, and I do that quickly, because it does not take long to get well here. What I do is I begin to awaken. And I have this experience. Step 10 talks about we have entered the world of the Spirit. And so the 10th step, what it is asking me to do is to continue that 4 through 9 process in the moment when I catch it on a daily basis. It asks that I watch. It asks that I pray if I see something. It asks that I discuss it with somebody. If I'm going to discuss it, I sure as heck better discuss it through the columns, because otherwise I'm just turning that into a gossip sesh, and that's not productive for anyone. But I utilize those columns that I learned in step 4 and sharing them, which I learned how to do in step 5. And when I'm asking for it to go, that's what I learned to do in step 7. And I go and I make amends if I've harmed somebody, and then I turn my thoughts to someone I can help. That vehicle moves with me, and we often talk about how those are growth steps. Steps 10, 11 are maintenance steps. But in my experience, there is growth in them. And then step 11 is about prayer, meditation, and inventory. Because in the big book, it talks about how we do an evening review. And again, I'm looking for the same things. I'm looking for the exact same things that I am looking for in my inventory. I'm looking for the exact same things that I'm looking for in my 10th step. And when they pop up, I can make a note of them, and I can take them through the columns. And also, I'm beginning to develop this relationship with a power that I could not know, I could not understand. I know through experience. As I do an inventory, I gain experience. As I do a fifth step, I gain experience. As I spend time in that quiet hour, I gain experience. As I ask for these things to be removed, I gain experience. As I go and make amends, I gain experience. As I continue this process, I gain experience. And in step 11, I continue to gain that experience and to grow, but I also get to deepen and develop that relationship that I am building through prayer and through meditation. And it's not and or meditation. It is both, through prayer and meditation. And then what happens? I deepen, I develop, I build, and I get to know this power more. And it is incredible. And see what happens in step 12. There's 3 parts to step 12. The first is a promise. It says, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. You see, I do this work to the best of my ability, and I will have this experience. It's got to be alcoholic proof. It's meant for us. It's got to be addict proof. It's meant for us. You're not so powerful that you can mess it up. You give this thing your best go, and it will happen for you quickly and thoroughly. We don't have time to wait. Let's go. Let's do this thing. Let's get well. It will happen. But then it says, it talks about how I carry this message to other people. This is, and don't worry, I'm aware of the time. I carry this message to other people. 12 stepping others, carrying this message. That's what we do. And one of the most surefire signs of a spiritual awakening is the desire to carry it to somebody else. Man, this is where the program comes alive. This is where the grace. Oh, that's nice of you to stop the timer. I'm winding down. Don't you worry. The grace, where the worst things I've ever done are now gifts and blessings that I get to use to help another person. Man, it has given my life meaning and purpose. And then part 3 is practicing these principles in all my affairs. For me, the principles are not nebulous concepts. The principles are the tangible actions of the 12 steps. 4 through 9. We can practice that in 10. We can practice that in 11. But those tangible actions, and I need to practice those in all areas of my life. It is not something that I talk about in between the prayers of the meetings. It is something that I live outside of the prayers of the meetings. And hopefully, I made that simple for you guys. Thank you for the opportunity to share.